again, Mark, and tell us all the good things the storm is doing up north.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Yeah, we are enjoying a beautiful winter day today. I am hopeful that some of this will translate into snowfall accumulations in the basin's high mountains. The dry, warm weather that has dominated winter up until recently this year has left snowpack conditions across the basin significantly below average for this time of year. This map is sourced from the Natural Resources Conservation Service. It shows snowpack conditions are below average for this state pretty much throughout the basin. Those northern basins are faring quite a bit better than the southern basins, but this was as of yesterday evening. So hopefully we'll see the results of some accumulation in tomorrow's update. The first graph I have here, it depicts snowpack conditions by date in the Rio Grande headwaters in Colorado. The green line represents median conditions, the orange line represents 2024 conditions, and the black line represents 2025 conditions. And while current snowpack levels are below median in this basin, they are better than they were actually this time last year. And we did end up with a pretty average runoff last year, so I just wanted people to take note of that. The second graph I have shows snowpack conditions in the Rio Chama Upper Rio Grande region, which is the Rio Chama Upper Rio Grande region, which is in New Mexico. Conditions here are below the median pretty significantly, 43% for this time of year. And they're also fairly below where we were this time last year. So I think there is some room to be concerned for these lower basins. There is still quite a bit of winter left and conditions could improve, but if the basin does not receive significant snow accumulation in the coming months, we can expect the Rio Grande to have a below average spring runoff this year. Moving on to the seasonal outlook for February through April, this can suggest a continuation of the above average temperatures and below average precipitation that we've seen for the most of this winter so far. So the forecast isn't looking great for us making up some of that ground that we need to make up. Looking to the compact, New Mexico ended 2023 with 121,500 acre feet of Rio Grande compact debt. While official 2024 debt figures will be reported at the Compact Commission meeting in April, I estimate that the New Mexico's debt grew by a couple thousand acre feet last year, which really isn't too bad. Given the sizable compact debt and the volume of storage in Elephant Butte and Caballo reservoirs combined is below 400,000 acre feet, Article 6 and Article 7 compact restrictions on native Rio Grande storage are in place and will likely remain in place for the rest of the 2025. Native Rio Grande water is water that originates in the Rio Grande Basin and is subject to the rules of the Rio Grande Compact. So it basically means we'll likely not be able to store any native Rio Grande water this year for use in the Middle Rio Grande. El Vado does remain unavailable to store more than 16,500 acre feet for the foreseeable future due to the dam rehabilitation project that we're all aware of. But I wanted to remind everyone that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has signed an agreement that the Chairman Kelly mentioned earlier, that gives us space to store water in Abiquiu. So we've kind of resolved the space issue, but we have not resolved the compact compliance issue. So while there's space to store water in Abiquiu this year, we likely won't be able to use it to store native Rio Grande water this year because of the compact. But it is a good thing to have in place because once New Mexico can gain some ground on compact deliveries, storage will not be limited by the El Vado rehab. We'll have a place to store that water. So the only storage water available to the MRGCD in 2025 will be its 2025 San Juan Chama allocation. And we also have a small amount carrying over from our 2024 allocation. San Juan Chama water is water that's imported from the San Juan Basin in Colorado and is not subject to the compact restrictions. And so that water can be stored even when native water cannot. So it's the only storage water that we'll have available this year to release to deliver to Middle Valley irrigators. And while it's too early to determine whether MRGCD will receive a full 20,900 acre foot allocation this year, current San Juan Basin conditions suggest the possibility of a partial allocation. Even with the full allocation of San Juan Chama water, it's not sufficient to augment river flows all summer without the help of summer monsoons. So turning to the sediment plug on the Rio Chama, The state-funded contractor has successfully increased channel capacity from Abiquiu to about 500 cubic feet per second, which is well below the pre-plug capacity of 1,800 CFS. Work's going to continue until January 21st with the goal of restoring conditions to 1,000 CFS within their project area. On January 21st, New Mexico will have exhausted its funding for their contractor. And since flows from Abiquiu were increased to 500 CFS, there have been some reports of groundwater seepage on lands downstream of the project area. The Corps will be making field visits to verify these claims, but if groundwater seepage due to river flows on the Chama are found to be impacting homes on the section of the river at 500 CFS, the Corps could potentially be limited to a restricted flow out of Abiquiu of 500 CFS, which could lead to significant spring flood storage of native Rio Grande water this spring. And that's a possibility. Obviously, they've not been able to get on the ground and verify these claims, but it came up at a meeting I was at, and it was a cause for concern because the state has no more money to fund their contractor to address this lower section of the Chama. And so the San Juan Chama contractors have written a letter that will be sent out soon to the Corps of Engineers requesting some funding for removal of sediment in the Chama. And we're kind of trying to take the angle of under their flood control authorities that they might consider funding some of this work. And then also we're asking for some additional operational flexibility with San Juan Chama water in their reservoirs for this upcoming spring so we can kind of creatively move water. And I think that's all I have for the Chama plug. But so what does all this mean for MRGCD irrigators? MRGCD will only have a small pot of water available to augment river flows when the river is not naturally producing enough water to meet the needs of Middle Valley farmers and their crops. Once MRGCD has released all of its available storage water, we will once again be reliant on summer rain events to support summer and fall irrigation deliveries. Farmers should expect limited irrigation deliveries once spring runoff is over and MRGCD is out of its San Juan Chama water. So that's my water supply update. Any questions about